This is the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game.
Rule number one is you have to believe in yourself. You're the only one who doesn't think you belong in this appointment. The prospect has already validated your existence by scheduling time with you. Get it through your head you belong here, go in there, crush it, and close the deal.
A place where sales professionals can come to learn from other sales professionals and thought leaders that have mastered their craft.
The difference between a good salesperson and a best-in-class salesperson is only 2 minutes. By spending an extra 2 minutes on what you might think is a mundane task in the sales game, you separate yourselves from the pack, you grow your book of business, you close more deals, and you retain your accounts.
As well as their peers who are still striving for perfection to achieve their why.
I have a wife and 4 kids. Failure is not an option.
Real sales professionals, real stories, real results. Are you ready to feel the power?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are on podcast number 3 of 4 in our first Monday of batch recording. And, you know, you got to pick your guest for spot number 3 in the old 4-day batch recording so that they're an energy boost for you to finish off the day. And when somebody comes in and all you have is a black background and a big smile, you can't help but be energized by knowing this is the person you're going to have a conversation with for the next few minutes. So I am very happy to have Miss Stacie King come on the podcast today. We're going to talk about what she's up to and what she's doing. Stacie and I originally met when she was in her role working with Agency Nation, but we have maintained contact and have begun to build a friendship since that time. And I just wanted to honestly kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm being nosy and want to know what's going on, but I also know there's a lot of other people out there who knew of her work at Agency Nation and probably want to know what the story is and how they can find more Stacie now. So Stacie, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It's weird to be on this side of the camera with you.
I always say that too, because there's so many times, like I was on a podcast with actually the guy we're interviewing after you last week, and it had been a while since I'd been on anybody else's podcast. So it's always kind of weird when you're asked the questions, especially since we ask so many. I feel like there's really nothing anybody could ask me that nobody has heard already, but they always find stuff.
I'm a talker anyway, so I always tend to volunteer information even when I'm not asked.
So we were talking before we got cranked up here. You mentioned the golf pictures behind me and said that you used to take pictures of golfers in college. So tell me how, and you didn't play golf, to me, that part's interesting of how you would get involved in something like that without being involved in the sport at all.
Yeah. Okay. So a little hindsight, I grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And of course you have Stone Mountain Park right next to in Stone Mountain. And my home, I grew up right down the road from the west gate of Stone Mountain Park. So of course, as a, 16, 17, 18-year-old, the easiest place to get a job was Stone Mountain Park. So during the summers, I would work at the beach as a, lifeguard / water slide attendant, where, we had the water park and it was all fun. You wore a bathing suit all summer and it was a great job. And then the rest of the months I would work at the golf course. And so when I first started out, I was flipping burgers at the little, at the stand where everybody came in to get hot dogs and hamburgers on the turn.
Yeah.
Yes, halfway up. So, but then I started talking with the professional photographer that owned a business out there, and his name was Jerry, and he owned a company called Golf Shots. And of course, being a perky blonde who can talk to anybody, he was like, I really need some help. out on the course, and I need somebody who can just walk up to people and start talking to them and make them feel at ease. And of course, we also try to pitch a lot of these corporations that are coming out here for golf tournaments on, buying these photography or all these photographs, the group shots and the individual shots, in one fell swoop instead of selling them individually. So he recruited me at first just to do sales. And so I sat there and I would talk to all the golfers as they came up, and then I would talk to the head guy of all these corporations that were coming out there for golf tournaments. And I ended up, selling a bunch of pictures. And then over the couple of months that I had started there, he started slowly teaching me how to take the pictures myself and what a good swing looks like and how to get people on the backswing. And so I would stand at the, on the green, and just basically as people were coming up, I would take their picture and then we would develop it by the end of the 9, and I would have it embossed and ready to go. And I would sell the guy on buying all the pictures right there. Okay. So I did that for 4 years at Stone Mountain Park. But then also he had a contract with University of Georgia and the Georgia Florida tournament. And we would go to Jacksonville every year. And for a week and a half, I would take pictures nonstop of Vince Dooley because he was, of course, the coach back when I was in college. Yep. And we would take pictures of him with all the various different golfers on the tee, and then we would develop them and give them back as tournament pictures, and people could buy them at the various different events. And so it was a lot of fun. Got to know Vince back in the day. He was such a nice guy. He actually introduced me to a guy that tried to hire me for my first job. Wow. So that's my history with golf. So I always say to everyone, I know a really bad swing when I see one, and I know a really good swing when I see one, but I've never actually played golf.
That's funny.
I just don't have the balance for golf as a Wobbly Girl.
So talk a little.
After about 4 or 5 transfusions, I don't really either, but.
I even have pictures of myself with Martina Navratilova and some members of various different hair bands that used to come out and play golf. And I would happen to be working, and I took pictures of them. The Who was out there one time, all of the members of the Who. I got pictures of, again, showing my age a little bit, but, to have a picture with Martina Navratilova, just me and her, cool. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about sort of your migration at this point. You're out doing your own thing, right? I know a little bit about what you're doing, but I have a feeling it's just sort of like the old iceberg diagram. There's probably way more below the surface. So what's a normal day look like for you these days?
Yeah. So I've been out on my own for years. It's just people associate me with various different clients because I make sure that, I always put my clients and their brands first. It's funny. I told you before we started recording, I'm terrible about promoting my own brand. I have 2 corporations, and I have for quite a while. One is, of course, my professional marketing organization, which is Stacie King Company, LLC. And that under that entity, I have worked with, organizations like, Norton Agency. I've worked with all of Norton's subsidiaries in the past. I've worked with Agency Nation for 3.5 years, trustedchoice.com, Trusted Choice. I wrote a column in Independent Agent Magazine for a year. I worked with Agentero for a year. So I work alongside all of the different brands, but I don't necessarily promote myself. I promote them. And then I have another corporation that I started simply for branding and kind of separating out my podcast of my own personal podcast, which the name is This Wobbly Life, and the Wobbly Girl LLC is that brand. And that is just from an influencer marketing and just to kind of share with people what my passion is, and that is promoting people with disabilities and how they can, still have wonderful careers and wonderful lives and contribute to society. They're no different than anyone else. And so I try to kind of shine light on them through that brand.
Is the wobbly part in reference to your horrible balance, or?
Yes. Yes, as a matter of fact, it is. So everybody, I think most people know my story by now. I don't hide it in any sense of the word. I kind of put myself and everything out there, but I have a physical disability, and it is a peripheral neuropathy disease called Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. Has nothing to do with my teeth. It's just the name of the 3 doctors that discovered it. And it's CMT for short, is what it's called. And if you follow country music, recently Alan Jackson announced that he has a disease. It's the same disease that I have. He has known about it for a very long time as well. It's a genetic condition, so I got it from my father. And so I knew my path my entire life. I found out that I had my disease when I was 5 years old, and it is a progressive disorder where it basically kind of kills the nerves in your body, and therefore the nerves then kind of, as they're dying off, that kind of takes your muscle control of your muscles away. And so it shows up in different people in different places. And some people that have the same disease, and even in the same family, one might be really progressed and have a lot of difficulty, and others just mild difficulties. You just never know how it's going to kind of show up. But I'm very much an advocate because, that's been my path my entire life. I knew that this was going to happen. And yes, I'm a wobbly girl because it's kind of hard to balance when you can't feel your feet. And so I use a cane to walk full time. And so now when people meet me, they know instantly that I've got some challenges. So I don't hide it at all.
Yeah, but I think when you lean into it, and I mean, you've built a brand around it at this point. So what better way to bring awareness than to just look, you're not going to change it, right? Embrace it,
right?
Move on and bring awareness to it. I mean, that I have a special guy at home, and it's funny because we're very open with everything that Ethan deals with, and we share it on social media all the time. And I had a surprise visitor yesterday who came to the house. That's a friend of mine, Mr. Troy Thompson from the great state of Minnesota, just randomly showed up in my driveway yesterday afternoon.
It's so awesome.
It's like, is there anything more Troy Thompson to do than, like, we were asking him all kinds of questions because, like, I think Troy's heart is always in the right place, but sometimes he just makes decisions and does things and he doesn't always think them all the way through. And like Annie just starts peppering him with questions like, what if we were at Disney today?
Right.
What if we were at the beach today? Like,
that's the first thing that popped into my head is you guys being out at Disney for the weekend. That happens on a regular basis.
Yeah. And so it's like, wow, you got on a plane from Minneapolis, never told any of us you were coming down. We had literally just gotten back from Costco. But anyhow, to the point, when Troy was coming to the house, he said, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if I'll be able to pick out their place. I wonder, if it looks like it does in Facebook. And I mean, he pulled in, he says, I pulled in, I see your truck. I see toys scattered all over the front yard. And there's Ethan blowing the neighbor's sidewalk. He said, my gosh, it's not fiction. Like, it actually is everything that you see. And I said, that's the thing, man. I think that, we share everything because I want people to understand that, we don't view Ethan as an excuse for not doing anything. We view him as a motivation, because if he can work as hard to do the things that come normal to the rest of us, and he can push and fight and pull those things off, then what excuse do the rest of us really have? And it was funny just to sort of sit and see how things unfolded over the course of the afternoon, because Troy got to see in real life what we try and describe every day. And, I think about it all the time. I don't know that I would be nearly as motivated in life if I didn't have him as my son, to be just as honest as I can be.
Yes, but it makes you become a fierce advocate of people like him and him in particular. And that's kind of who I've chosen to be. I think it's sad because I grew up in a generation, and even my father, and I can say this with all of my heart, my father had a lot of reservations about me kind of coming out and sharing my story with people, because he always felt like, in his generation, you kept it at arm's length, and you didn't tell people all of your stuff, because again, you didn't want employers to judge you. You didn't want people to not want to hire you for whatever reason. And it was kind of that world of not shame about it that you were different, but kind of, again, guarded and worried and not feeling like you could be yourself. And I've just always had a different approach. And, I've been wobbly my entire life. It wasn't until probably, I guess, around age 23, after I had my son, I had to start wearing leg braces to balance. And so at that point, it's hot in Georgia. It's, 80, 90 degrees. I've got leg braces on. I'm wearing shorts. I'm walking in the mall. People stop me asking me, what's that on your legs? You just start to learn that I'm just going to be me, and I can't be anybody different. So why try? Why try to be something that I'm not? And so I really started to embrace that. And I think that it's really become a part of who I am, and for my brand, and why I kind of embrace it from a brand standpoint, is that I have a voice, and I'm lucky to be really kind of loud and out there. And I've been in digital marketing, gosh, for going on, 30 years in marketing, then digital marketing, of course, not always digital marketing, but so I have a lot of connections on all of the different platforms that I'm on. And so because I have this voice, I'm able to share that message of, look, we're no different than anyone else. We just approach life differently. I have to do things a little differently than you might do them. I might have to have assistance from a cane or to hold on to things. When, if I'm going to give a speaking engagement, I make sure that there's something for me to hold on to, so that I don't stand there and go like this the entire time. There's a whole life out there that I feel that people just need to accept people no matter who they are. And this, in 2023, if we're all about diversity and inclusion, that should be the practice. No matter who you are and what organization that you belong to, you should make sure that everyone feels accepted and able to be themselves.
Well, listen, the other thing is I'm connected to you on multiple social platforms, so I have an unfair advantage. But I mean, if people were to look at a portfolio of your work, and I'm not just talking about the marketing stuff, I mean, you flip houses, or at least go in and do complete renos too, right? Like, I followed a little bit of that process. I admittedly, I'm not sure if it was the house you're living in or if it was an investment property or whatever, but you just wrapped up some pretty hardcore construction in the recent past, didn't you?
Yeah. So that's actually our personal projects. I'm a real, I like to stay busy, and we're empty nesters, so we have a lot of time on our hands. Let's just be honest. Once the kids are out of the house, it's a different world. So, decorating has always been a passion of mine. I love, putting my mark on different spaces. And so we bought our current home back in 2018, and it's a ranch out in the country. We live on 9 acres. And so I've taken every room of this house and redone the whole thing. And I started an Instagram about it, because again, that's me. Instagram, TikTok, we kind of have put all of our different projects and renovation projects for our personal home out on the internet. And then I also have bought an investment property this last year, and that's the one I think that you're looking at. We just took a 70-year-old home, and not far from us, which is about 15 minutes from where we're at, right in downtown Monroe. And it's a rental property that we renovated because it needed a lot of work, but it had some good bones, and it turned out really, really cute. And I'm very proud of it. We've got some great renters in there that love it, and they're living there, and they've got a cute, 2 cute kids. So I feel good about offering somebody a home that I would feel proud to live in. And that was kind of a personal project of ours.
Nice.
So back to the more mainstream stuff that you're known for, the marketing and things like that. Talk a little bit about, what you're doing now and what you're looking to do to expand.
Yeah, so I've been able to really stay busy after my contract with Agency Nation was kind of winding down. Again, I continued to write a monthly column for Independent Agent magazine for a year, and was able to continue that even with working with other clients such as Agentero. Worked with them for a year, kind of managing their digital marketing and communications and content marketing in particular. I'll be wrapping that project up pretty quickly. I think I've got one more interview that I owe them, that I host videos similar to what you do. You interview people, you talk to them, you do, live webinars, and then you turn them into podcasts, and you turn them into other content marketing that you can share on their behalf. And so, but even after I stop working with clients, I don't ever, in the relationship, I really feel like I marry every client that I've ever worked with, and we kind of lock arms, and we're cheerleaders and champions for one another. And it's fun. And I make it a big point to stay in contact with all the people that I've worked with in the past. I also have a new client that's outside of technically the insurance space, but they're still working in this vertical, which is for social media management client. They have a really cool SaaS platform that allows agents to be active online, very simply to keep their agency in front of their client base. So it's B2C marketing on their behalf, but then I also run the marketing and strategy for this client. I'm working with a nonprofit as well. And so I just have fun with it. I'm doing different projects here and there. I do everything from project management, MarTech, marketing technology projects, coming up with how do we automate these systems? How do we make it easier and more accessible for people to be online? And what is the strategy, and what does it need to look like? What all does that, encompass?
So digital marketing obviously is an ever-moving target.
Yes.
If you were to tell people 3 trends they should be looking at that you think are going to turn into something over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, where would you tell agents to focus their attention?
Ooh, I don't think that content marketing is ever going away. Earned media is huge. You can spend a lot of money on paid media, and yes, there's a place and a purpose for that, where you need to, do Facebook ads and driving leads and driving traffic from a paid perspective, but nothing's ever going to replace good earned media with, organic traffic, making sure that you're staying in front of your current client base and engaging with them. I think that employee advocacy programs are definitely something that every organization needs to be looking into, making sure that, if you have capital in people, that you really have them kind of create and take on ownership of your brand, and working alongside your marketing team to share what that messaging should be to their own audience. Because again, you're hiring people, they're part of your team. Why not make sure that they have the resources and the understanding of what the marketing team is trying to accomplish, and to have them help you with that messaging, and being an advocate for your brand. All of your employees, if you're doing a good job at company culture, should be a brand ambassador for your organization. So I would say, employee advocacy for sure. I would also say, AI is not going anywhere at all. You need to learn it. You need to embrace it. I've been working with various different platforms that either have AI built into them, or, the newcomers that are coming out now, of course, Chat GPT, and Jasper is another one. You've got a lot of different platforms that you've got to understand what AI can do for you and what limitations it has. Chat GPT is only as good as what you can teach it. And as well, I feel personally, you don't ever want to take that human element away from your marketing. Yes, you can have artificial intelligence to help you to write and to help you to be more, to help you to do it more quickly, and to help you to be a better communicator. But you don't want to leave it up to AI to do all of your messaging. You want to make sure that you have personality in your messages. You want to make sure that you understand that the artificial intelligence understands what your brand is about. So teaching AI what your brand stands for, what materials that you think are important, what you want to teach your audience, who your audience is. It's nothing different than in marketing, developing a persona for all of your different entities and teaching it what that means. So I would say AI is the second one.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought that was 3. Keep going.
Well, yes. So AI, content marketing, and employee advocacy. Those are the 3.
I guess so. One thing that I've learned from doing this podcast over the past 3 years is that our industry seems to be significantly behind in terms of adopting technology, or just, I guess, agency owners are late adopters. So for those people who may not really understand what you were just talking about, like where should somebody start? If they're so far behind, it can seem overwhelming. Like, what's step number 1?
Being just getting online and being active. You can't really develop any sort of employee advocacy programs or any sort of paid media or anything without understanding who your audience is and being in front of them consistently. And I say that there's a lot of agents that feel that the only time they want to be in front of somebody is when they have something awe-inspiring to share, or that they are trying to sell them something. People don't want to be sold to in 2023. We are living in the streaming services world where people don't have to watch commercials if they don't want to. They'll fast forward through that. I don't want to watch shows anymore that are once a week, right? I want to binge watch when I want to watch and how I want to watch. So, online presence is no different. You need to be consistent with your messaging, but you also need to be personable. And that goes from not just an individual, but also from a brand. You need to understand who is it that your audience is, how do they like to consume your messaging, and who do they connect with and why? And start kind of, sharing messaging that gives them your personality in little bits and pieces. And it doesn't always have to be something that's amazing. It could just be, sharing content that you've come across and rewriting that. I'm big on, Robin Steele. And I say that, always source and cite somebody that may have inspired you to write that, but you can take someone else's idea and expand upon it or rewrite it. And you can use AI for those purposes as well to help you to come up with a broader message, but then just like David Carothers does, push record and stand in front of a camera and recite what you learned. Here's 2 things that I learned today. I read an article by, Kyle Houck, and we talked about XYZ. Or he talked about XYZ in his article. This is what my take on it is. It doesn't have to be difficult. So I would say,
about making everything, everything doesn't have to be brilliant and like revolutionary that you're out there posting, I think is key. I think that's probably where a lot of people get hung up, is they think that, I've got to come out with something that's, super unique and captivating every single time I post something. And I think your point about just kind of being in front of people is the part that's more important.
Yeah. And I think that people also want to craft a sales approach and a sales message. And that's unfortunate that, corporations and even, organizations to this day, that's the only message that you want to put out is how great you are. Share things that you might have messed up in the past. Share things that lessons learned. share, where you didn't get it right, or share, that you don't know everything, but you're learning. Share everything about your brand, because it's not all roses. And sometimes things are hard in business. And I think that, your folks that are paying attention appreciate that more than anything, being authentic and being yourself versus always trying to be so perfect.
Well, I think the
Life's
other thing,
not perfect.
yeah, I think the other thing too is there's a lot, like I always question, I mean, I'm sure other people think the same way. Why is Coke advertising? Why is Pepsi advertising? Down here, why does Publix even advertise? We're going to go there regardless. I'm going to drink, Coke Zero regardless. So why do they spend all of this like crazy money doing Super Bowl ads and everything else? And, I think the one place, to me, the brands that are always going to be the most successful, and this is specifically true in digital and social, are the brands that are willing to humanize themselves, right? You've got to bring it down to where people can relate to it. And, I'm a big sucker and sap for the Christmas and holiday commercials at Publix. That'll get the waterworks going every time. And the same thing, like when they do their military homecoming stuff, that's going to get me every time. But it also is something that gets an emotional reaction and makes me want to support that brand, because it's like, wow, look at all the good stuff they're doing. Or man, that Thanksgiving commercial really got me in the heels as my kids are getting older and will start leaving and all of that.
Well, it's relatable. People don't relate with the entity. They relate with your story.
And you just made my point that's what the insurance industry really needs to be able to do. And I'm not talking about just agents. I'm talking about the products that agents use. Like when have you ever seen like a really good humanizing campaign? You don't see one. We get print advertisement for the most part. Some of them have podcasts, so I'll give them that. But at the end of the day, especially with technology providers, I think many times it's more of an us versus them type thing. When you hear how agents talk about how some of their vendor partners engage with them about canceling their service, or, what the contracts look like that they have to sign, it's just like a very adversarial kind of relationship for no reason, which is weird considering you're wanting to do business together. And, look, part of that's on the agent's plate. Agents write contracts of adhesion every day, but they're the last ones who want to stick to one, right? So I'm not throwing off on, Vertafore or Applied or anybody else for having very rigid contract language. They should. That's part of their job. And I mean, we're in insurance and risk management. We should understand what contractual risk transfer looks like. So, if you don't like it, don't sign it to begin with. But once you do, stick with it. But I feel like there's so much that could be done to humanize a lot of what we do. And it doesn't all need to be negative. You'd be hard pressed to find an overall more charitable group in their communities than independent agents. Yet I don't ever see, like very, very rarely do you see it. And I think part of that has to do with the fact there's a fine line between sharing good things you're doing and exploiting those good things to get a marketing message out. Really good agencies do it very, very well. Chris Paradiso's agency, probably the best in the country for that, in my opinion, right? You're going to know when they're giving away bikes. You're going to know when they're doing reverse trick or treat to the cancer patients at the Children's Hospital. You're going to know all of these different things. And it's not something that I feel like Chris is in your face saying, hey, look what we do. It's more your dollars coming into our agency. This is what we're able to give back to the community that you're in. And people want that, right? We were just talking before we started recording with you. We recorded an episode with Carson and Bob Seville from Seville Public Entity, also Georgia people. And, he was talking about the fact that many times, you've got local agents that have an in with a local public entity, but then you also have the various pools in different states for public entity. And one of my questions is, why would somebody how would you sell against the pool, or why would something, what would be the attraction to go into the pool or whatever else? But he made the point when we were talking that people, want to do business with the local agent because that money goes back into the local community, as opposed to if you do money with a state pool, it's going to go more outside of your local geography, right?
Right. Right. And I agree. When you're talking about stories, it doesn't necessarily have to be all about, touting what you've done. I'm sure that Chris Paradiso is the best at it because he's so good at so many things. But for him, he's probably also bringing you along on the ride as he's gathering funds for that charity, or he's promoting. I know his sister is mentally challenged and is very involved in Special Olympics. And so he's probably sharing with you the awesome things that she's been able to accomplish because of Special Olympics. And so, if you're just wanting to say, hey, we gave a big check once a year, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about bring your audience along for the ride. What do you do on a weekly basis? Do you go to, your local Kiwanis club? Are you involved with them? Why are you involved with them? What is your participation? Did you meet anybody that's interesting? Write about that. Share their story. Put the spotlight on others. And automatically, when you do that, the spotlight always comes back to you because you're, again, making those connections. And that's where I feel that people miss that boat, is that they always try to kind of shine the light on themselves. And if you stop for a minute to start and shine the light on the organizations that you're involved with, or that you're coming in contact with in your community, or that you feel strongly about, then by just being active, people are going to start to wonder, wow, who is this guy? He's everywhere. He's connected.
It's like the reels on TikTok or Instagram. You see people walking up to homeless people, like, giving them a sandwich and like recording it, like selfie. It's like, come on, man.
Like your boy Greatness.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, but
you need to check him out. It's exactly who you're talking about. You need to check him out on TikTok.
It's cringe, man. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't want to see that guy.
No, there's a way to do that stuff. And then that's really what I was saying. It's a fine line because you really have to have it dialed in. And I honestly believe that if your heart's in the right place, it's going to be very evident in your marketing message, because you're going to be drawn toward where your heart is. And what I can tell you is people want that in your messaging. People want to know more about what you feel and what you believe, as opposed to what you can do for them or what they can do for you. And that's evidenced because there are times where I will make posts about Ethan and something he's done that just blew my mind. And you probably remember this, but one of the most far-reaching posts I've done in 20 years of any type of digital marketing activity was the one that was just a very quick impromptu shot that my wife got of him wearing my backpack blower that was way too big for him, that he somehow went in and sat down on the ground and figured out how to get on his back. And he was coming out. Nobody was telling him he couldn't blow the driveway, and he wasn't going to use the little handheld that we gave him. He knew we were cutting the grass.
That thing, I might turn him into a jet. It might be a jetpack. He might be.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's what I told Andrea. But I put it up there and I put the messaging behind it, which was 100% what my thoughts were. Here's a kid who has every excuse in the world to not be doing this. And he's not going to take no for an answer. And this is what he did. And we all can learn from this. So I put it out there. That thing got over 1.5 million views on LinkedIn, and it had nothing to do with business. Nothing at all.
Yes.
But
That's
it was
exactly
the message.
what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Right. And so but if I would have done that post specifically to try and get 1.5 million views by featuring my son, it's a whole different animal at that point. So it's not going to be viral. In fact, you're probably going to lose followers and have people be turned off about you personally or your brand because it's a forced effort and it's not. That's what I tell people. When Troy was sitting in our house last night, he's like, my gosh, man, he goes, it's literally everything I would have expected based on what I've seen following you on social media. He said, it's literally no different at all. And I told him, I can only be one guy, man.
Right. But that's the beauty of it, and when I go back to looking at your post, you talk about your different organizations that you belong to and are affiliated with. You share stories about your personal challenges with your child. You share stories about travel. You share stories about, what exciting things you're doing and what you're planning to do in the future. You might mention that you're writing a book, but you mention it from the perspective of, I want to help other agents. It shouldn't be about you. It should be about what you're trying to accomplish for others. And that's what I truly feel that some brands have a disconnect, and that it's always about what they want people to see and understand about them. And I feel that if they just kind of turn that focus to be about their client base, about who they're trying to reach, share their stories, how has working with a carrier helped this individual, and what did it do for them? If you're an insurance agent and you had someone who you provided coverage have a loss, what happened and how did they feel after that loss? And were they just privileged that you had taken the time to give them the proper coverage? Those are the things that if you just kind of step back and look at, who do you want your organization to represent and what do you want it to represent? It's not rocket science. It's really just kind of changing it up. And yes, you can tell who you are as a company every once in a while, but it's more fun to share other people's stories and what they think about you, right?
That's true. And the other thing is, it's just really so important for you to be able to talk in your own voice. And that's my biggest concern with all of the AI and Chat GPT. I think at some point, it is going to be so dialed in that you're going to be able to upload samples of your blog posts and it is going to be able to write in your voice. I feel like we will get there at some point, but it is going to require a lot before we get there. And I will never, ever abandon my belief that you should write your own content. Okay. I think you can use Chat GPT as a framework, right? And so what I've been telling people who ask me my thoughts is, number one, go and get a list of things you can talk about something specific, like what are the top 10 OSHA citations for precision machine shops, right? Now give me a list of those OSHA violations, and then you can drill down further and say, give me an idea for blog post titles for a blog post written about hazardous communication in manufacturing concerns, and it'll give you some titles. And then take it one step further and say, what are 3 or 4 bullet points I need to make sure I cover, and let it feed you that. Now you basically have your outline. Go write it. It doesn't need to write the whole thing for you. The problem is, and people don't understand the power, you're building your relationship in the digital world way more than you realize. Unless you're somebody who's really studied this, you don't realize. I mean, look, I'm going to make this a little bit weird for about 2 seconds, but if you look at it from this perspective, one of the biggest things that scares me about being the parent of kids that are teenagers or moving into being a teenager is we have removed dating from the entire process, right? Dating does not exist as it used to exist. There used to be an initial, hey, I like this person likes me, let's go out with a couple of our friends. And then it turned into, there would be a period where you would date a little bit, and you were sweaty palms, hadn't even held hands the first time, and you worked your way up. And what social media has done is it's removed all of that, because you're interacting with people on Snapchat, TikTok, whatever, and you're building the emotional connection in a digital environment. So you're completely removing all of that courtship that happens in person. And when you get kids together, they're doing things that I'm not really an advocate for, because they have such a strong connection, right? That's proven fact. Like, there's nobody that's going to argue that. It happens every single day in high schools all over the country. It's the same thing with the content that you're putting out. You're building that relationship and that emotional connection, and every piece of content is another deposit into that relationship with that person, so that when they're ready to make the decision and move forward, they're going to reach out. And what are they going to do when they reach out and the voice is not ChatGPT? It's actually an individual. And then it's an individual that maybe they don't like as much as the voice of whoever wrote that. It's a really weird scenario, but there are so many times, that I've had clients where we've written, some level of content and pushed it out to social, and they only want to deal with the person who wrote the article. And it's because of that.
Yes.
You also have instant credibility because people read your stuff. And if, it makes sense and you know what you're talking about, and they can see that you know what you're talking about, then they're gonna make the buying decision before they ever reach out to you. They've already bought from you before they make the call.
Yeah, it's no different than, years ago. Things haven't changed in sales. Sales is a relationship. Sales, drip marketing back in the day when I was first starting out in marketing, you dripped little messages to people. And then eventually, if and when they were ready to make that buying purchase, they would think of you. It's no different. It's the delivery method has changed, right? So you're in front of them every day. You have the opportunity to get them on your side or against you every single day. But again, it doesn't have to be, I'm the greatest insurance agent in the world, or I'm the greatest marketer in the world. You just want to share with them who you are as a person, who you stand for, what your message is, and what you want to do with your life, and why you feel that things are the way that they are, and what you feel like is important to you. And if you can connect, you're not going to connect with everybody. That's another thing that's a misnomer. When people get nervous about putting stuff out online, they're like, ooh, but if I say this, I might alienate this one small little percentage of my potential market. Well, really, were they a market for you? If they're going to criticize you on social about something that you feel strongly about, maybe they're not your market. Hone in and lock arms with the people that really get you and get what you're trying to accomplish and understand your business and your brand. And you'll get so much more business, even out of a smaller pool that you really connect with, than you will trying to, throw your net and catch everyone and be perfect in front of everybody at all times. Just be real. And I feel that, it's a challenge. And going back to what you're talking about with AI, I love the fact that you mentioned, all the things that you can come up with. It's like when Answer the Public, are you familiar with that site? It's been out for years and years and years, but Answer the Public kind of had that, where you go in and you say, okay, I want to write about something. Help me come up with the topic. That's no different. ChatGPT, that's what I feel that those AI writers, they help you come up with subject lines. They help you come up with, things that are going to resonate from a search engine optimization perspective. But you can come up with the main topic, and then you can hone in and really niche in. And the beauty is that you start out with something that's pretty kind of generic and wide, and then the next piece of content, you can hone in on one particular area, and then you can share something even more, and it becomes then now a series. So it just makes life a little easier to come up with ideas. But again, you do want that to be from your own voice, even if you're helping come up with the best way to say something. You can use AI for that, but don't let it totally replace your personality and your message.
So here's my question. We've been going almost an hour. I want to be respectful of your time. And we've got another guy in the bullpen warming up, ready for us to get him at 3. I'm a newer agent, or I'm an agency principal who's been reluctant to do any type of digital or specifically content-based marketing. What's a piece of advice you're going to give them how to start? Like, what's the first thing they need to be doing?
One platform. One. And I would suggest, the easiest way to start is to either, if you're going after, let's just say you're a personal lines agent, pick Facebook. Go on Facebook, and you want to pick one platform, and you want to be consistent, and you want to create content at least, I would say, every other day, you want to be putting something out. And it can be a personal message. It can be about, industry events. You can share what you learn every day. You can share a new piece of technology that you tried out and you failed miserably at. Just share something. What I can not stress enough, though, is share who your team is. Share their stories. Who are the people that you're investing your money in? If you've got great team members and you feel strongly that, you hired a great person and that you brought them into your family and you're teaching them everything about your business, why would you not want to promote them and share the spotlight on them? And so you want to, be touting your employees. You want to just try to become active. And then once you become active, even if it's just social posts, then you can kind of expand and you can start doing video marketing and you can start doing, interviews in your community, talk to your clients, talk to people that you volunteer with. If it's your church that's important to you, start talking to people that you may know from church that own businesses. It doesn't all have to be about you. And if you need help, reach out to other people, whether it be me or there's others out in the industry that would be more than happy to give you advice and to help you along the process. Online, they can find me on LinkedIn, of course, Stacie King, or they can just email me sk@stacieking.co, STACIEKING.co. I'm always happy to volunteer my time to answer questions or give advice or just pop on a meeting. StacieKing.me. You can book some time on my calendar and I'll answer any questions that anybody has.
Cool.
That's actually what I was going to say is you got to make sure they know it's IE and not EY or Y. It's
Yes.
Stacie.
My mother wanted it to be a little unique. So
that's all right. Nothing wrong with that. All good. Well, listen, I appreciate you spending time with us today. This episode was a long time coming and just really appreciate your friendship and your transparency and all that you're doing. And I really hope that, you continue to have a lot of success with what you're doing out there and that people realize that you're a great resource for them and they reach out and they ask questions and, hopefully it leads to opportunities for you to interact at a deeper level. So I really appreciate you taking time to share your story. And I know that everybody listening does as well. And with that, we are going to wrap this one up. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next time. See ya.